One of the most prized possessions that survived my childhood was a high chair that was given to me when I was born. An aunt and uncle who were very important in my life had it shipped from Illinois to us in Northern California, and it was solid wood back then, and actually the top came off and made a little rocking chair, so it could be used as a high chair or a chair. It survived. My three brothers used it, and my children used it when they were infants, and it survived, and I've got it, and it's very important. Regarding the advice that I would like to give you would probably be regarding your future. It may involve your education, um, but more than that, being willing to reach out and experience new things. I was always really reluctant to do that. I got into my safety zone and I was afraid to step out of it. And I would like to see you find something that you're very passionate about, whether it's your music or something in the arts, your art, the drawings you've done, the paintings you may do, that type of thing. I think it's really important to feel passionate about something in your world, as well as to make a living. Hopefully, very few people get to make a living at what they feel so strongly about. So I think because I chose the safety route and really didn't do that, I'd like to see you have the confidence to reach out and try new things. The question was, what advice I would give to someone who's lost a loved one. And all I can do is relate my personal experience with it, and that was to treasure the memory, to give yourself time to savor and grieve, and then not necessarily move on, because that means leaving some things behind that maybe I don't want to leave behind. But deciding it was okay to mention that name in the house and not be afraid to, for the family, encourage family time to talk about it, because a lot of families can't do that, and it's really difficult if you can't mention the name and tell stories and be sure we remember. Um, and give yourself time. Time does help. And everyone told me that, but I didn't see how time was going to make it any easier. And in fact, it has. This is about favorite animals I had in my childhood. And I think we had two Cocker Spaniels, and we had cats, none of which were really allowed in the house. Mom wanted them to be outside animals, and I think I spent most of my time dressing the cats in doll clothes and pushing them down the road in a doll buggy. And we lived out at a logging camp where my dad owned a sawmill. And so walking the dogs down to the sawmill and back home. And I think it taught me a lot of responsibility, and that we had to take care of our own pets growing up. And therefore we've been pet lovers. We've had pets in the house, and specifically dogs and cats, because we've never lived out where we can have other animals. But they were a great influence to me, and I would highly recommend people have those animals in their world, particularly as children. What have you been up to today? Did you go with Papa in the car? You did, didn't you? She's learned that at the drive-up windows, a French fry comes out the window. Yeah, yeah. You're really the Kleckler dog. You really are the Kleckler dog. You are. But, yeah, you want to turn around and look at it? Okay. Okay, when growing up and having friends over to the house to play, we lived out at the sawmill, so there was no place to really go socially. So we like to play with the dolls. We could swim in the creek behind the house. That was a big activity for us. And rode bicycles a lot. Because it was rural, we didn't need to worry about traffic and cars and the roads were pretty much our place to play. So we grew up in Northern California in the Redwoods, and it was just a really spectacular place to play with friends. We were allowed to just basically run and go where we wanted to go with very little restriction. So I have very fond memories of that. A pastime or a hobby for me these days that I've really enjoyed is needlepoint, and it's using threads of different textures and different colors and variations on canvas, and you can follow a pattern or you can make up your own. And I've passed a lot of hours sitting there, and I can listen to the TV, I can listen to music. I've enjoyed some podcasts with the TED speeches and so forth recently, and I can sit and listen to those while I'm doing that. I think I enjoy doing it more than the final result. I really haven't done much with them once they're completed, but that's good for me. And I've really enjoyed cooking in the past. Don't do a lot of it anymore, but I do enjoy cooking, and particularly preparing for family dinners here.
What is my name? My name is Leslie. My parents are Joseph and Ruth. My sisters are Virginia, Joanna, and I have a brother, Stephen.
Ginny Gregory Alexander. My parents were Ruth and Joe Gregory. My sister is your grandmother, Joanna Christensen. My other sister is Leslie Jaggy, and I have a brother, Stephen.
My name is Joanna Christensen. I was born Joanna Gregory. My father was Joseph Gregory, and my mom was Ruth Gregory, and my birth mom was Mary Gregory. My dad had to remarry after my mom died when I was only 3. And then mom and dad had 3 more children. There was Virginia, who is 5 years younger than me, and then Stephen, who's 10 years younger than me, and Leslie, who's 11 years younger than me. We were fairly poor when we were growing up. Dad kept getting better jobs and eventually got a good job, and so life got easier for everybody.
Well, I think we all think our childhood was idyllic. It was good. My older sister was a pain. My younger sister was a pain. My brother was a pain. So yeah, it was pretty good.
We all had our disagreements. We were 5 years apart.
Well, my oldest sister, Joanna, threatened without her nails.
So I was more like the babysitter for a while.
Jen was the one that took me places to bars when I was underage.
We were rivals.
What role has faith played in your life?
None.
I think it got you through certain times. A lot of, like when they told me that, there were a lot of things wrong with him because I had a difficult pregnancy. I think that was when I was having Hans, and there were a lot of complications. They didn't know if he would be born normal. They had neonatalists waiting for him, and then he was fine.
No, I don't know. I don't think we had a lot of fears.
What was your greatest fear if you had one as a child?
I don't know. My mother always said I wasn't afraid of anything.
My favorite subject was always English and math. I did a lot of reading.
I didn't really like school growing up, which is odd because I became a teacher, but maybe that's why I became a teacher. My least favorite job is teaching, and my most favorite job is teaching for the Science Museum.
My father had said to me, Jen, I'll send you to graduate school if you want. And I said, oh God, Dad, I've been going to school for all these years. I don't want to go to any more school. Then I walked out of my graduation and I said to myself, oh, my father wasn't stupid after all. I should have taken him up on that offer because I realized I'm going to have to work the rest of my life. I don't think you really realize that until it happens.
The fact of going to college was a requirement in our family. Dad and Mom wanted all of us to have the opportunity to go to college because they didn't. And so he sent all of us to college.
When you're young and you have the time to be on marches and change the world, you do. As you get older, you have children, you tend to go more middle of the road because you have to. But what we obviously went on marches for with the Kent State shootings.
I'm sure my children have changed me. Raising 2 kids on your own has changed me. Teaching, because you're always interacting with different types of children. It just changes things that, maybe your perspective on life.
When your first parent dies, that's pretty cataclysmic. And then I had my husband die. That was a big event. So I would say basically when people leave you, that's probably something that changes you the most. It doesn't change you, but you learn to adapt.
Brian was almost completely blind, and I think he was afraid of the dark. He'd wake up at night and he'd cry, and I'd have to get up and take care of him. If I was exhausted or not, it didn't matter. And I was always aware of that because I didn't want him to wake up Mark, and they were sharing a bedroom. So it was difficult. It was very hard to be the 24-hour caretaker of someone like that who couldn't respond. The only thing he knew was being held and being fed.
I think working full-time, teaching and coming home, dealing with children all day, and then coming home to children. And then with Hans, it was dealing with the seizures and the medication, and it was challenging.
Raising Matthew?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was a sweet baby. I said, this is so easy. I could have 10 of these. Then he turned 4, and he came out to be this creepy little lawyer. And I didn't like him. He's 30 now. I still don't like him.
And then definitely when I, threw Jurgen out, and I had 2 kids and had to work full-time.
I said to Mark, oh, you want to go on the trains? So he says, yeah. So we walked down to the trains. I guess it was the first time he'd ever seen one. And most people that stand at the trains are like, well, Mark, he saw the train started coming. He's like, oh, Jenny, the train's coming. And everybody turned and laughed because it was funny.
What is your most prized possession?
She is not a possession, but Haley, my granddaughter, is my most prized thing in my life.
It's a car. It's a Nissan. It's a 1984 300ZX. But did you want me to say my son?
What's your life philosophy?
Every day's different, just hang in there. Live and let live.
Take one day at a time. Enjoy it. And don't worry about what other people think so much. Be accepting of other people. That's the most important thing in life. Get along with people. You don't think as a kid that it might be that important, but life is all about getting along with other people.
Enjoy your life while you're young, because too soon there's too many responsibilities and you don't get to have the fun that people should have sometimes.
What advice would you give me for my life?
That's a great question. I would say to always do your best, to be conscious of what's going on around you, and to do what you would love to do in life.
Tell me about one of your most prized possessions.
My most prized possessions are my grandchildren. I have 4 lovely granddaughters, and they are my most prized possessions. Pop and I were so proud to have our 4 daughters, because we only had 2 sons.
Tell me about your first memory.
My first memory as a child? My goodness. My first memory is moving into our new house that we had just built in November of 1957. And when we moved in, we were so excited coming from the city to the country. And it was snowing, and we walked into the house, and my mom and dad had bought all new furniture, so we had never seen all the furniture. We had never seen the house completed. We used to come every weekend to watch it being built. But that was my first true memory of that I can remember. I was 7 at the time.
How did your parents meet?
How did my parents meet? My mother's best friend and my dad's best friend were engaged to each other, and they introduced themselves to each. I guess they introduced my mom and dad, and then later on they became my godparents.
How did you meet Pop Pop?
Pop-Pop, that's a long story. How long do you have? Both Pop-Pop and I were working at Sears Roebuck and Company in Middletown, New Jersey. I was in the infants department. I sold all children's clothing and baby clothes, and Pop-Pop was in the paint department. Ironically enough, we went to school together, but never knew each other in school. And this was my senior year in high school. And Pop-Pop came up for the paint department and introduced himself. And then he came to the house and knocked on the door and asked me to go out. So that's basically how we met. But for 3 years we went to school together but never knew each other. Pop-Pop was an athlete and played basketball and ran cross country. But I never went to any sports events, so I didn't know him in school. I knew of him, but I didn't know him. That's how we met.
Tell me about your wedding day.
My wedding day. Oh, it was a beautiful day. We got married on December 20th in New Jersey. We got married in the Buttonwood Manor, and the reception was downstairs, and the entire back of the restaurant was nothing but windows overlooking the lake. And everything was all frost and snow covered from the snow that we had had the week before. It was very exciting. We got married in a Catholic church, and we had our reception at the manor. And we had a wonderful time. It was really a beautiful day. And the next week, thank goodness we got married when we did. The next week there was a big snowstorm, so we would have never been able to get to the Buttonwood Manor had we had waited 1 week longer.
Tell me about the day Uncle Joe was born.
Oh goodness. The day Uncle Joe was born, we were living in an apartment, and I was on a cleaning kick. I just wanted to clean everything, so I was scrubbing the floors and cleaning up all of the apartment, and I felt, I said, this is it. I think I'm in labor. And I was in labor, and I told Pop-Pop, I said, we need to go to the hospital because I think I'm in labor. This was like 10 hours after I started to feel like I was having contractions. So Pop-Pop gets up from the chair, goes into the bathroom, shaves, brushes teeth, showers, and I said, we need to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and Uncle Joe was born the next morning at 7:57 a.m., and he was born on his daddy's birthday. So both him and my husband shared the same birthday, and I think that was the best birthday present I ever gave Pop-Pop.
Where were you when President Kennedy was shot?
When John F. Kennedy was shot, I was in grammar school in the 8th grade, and the teacher got a call on the phones that are hooked up to the walls. This was a long time ago. The little phones were hooked up to the walls, and he got a call from the front office to say that President John F. Kennedy had been shot in Dallas, Texas. And so our teacher told us, and we were all in shock, couldn't believe that someone would actually take a shot and kill the president. The only president we ever knew that had been shot was way back in history, and that was Abraham Lincoln. But we never thought that would happen again. And I watched the funeral procession on our TV, because we couldn't go to the funeral in Washington, D.C., but the funeral procession was on TV, and I watched it at my next-door neighbor's house, because we were good friends. And we watched the whole procession for the whole day, and it was the saddest day I can remember.
Tell me about some of the places where you've been the happiest.
Oh, anywhere I usually go with Pop-Pop, I was the happiest, but let's see. Disney World, England, Italy. Where was it? Oh, I guess back home in New Jersey when we used to do things at our house in New Jersey. And of course, at our new house in Florida, those were the happiest times that we spent together.
Tell me about your favorite memory with Papa.
Gosh, my favorite memory with Papa. That's a lot of thinking right there. I can tell you about a funny memory with Papa. Okay. We were married in December of '69, and we weren't able to go on a honeymoon because his grandfather was in the hospital dying, so we postponed our honeymoon. So we never got on a honeymoon. So many, many years later, we were camping at Fort Wilderness in the Disney World in Florida. And Papa said, "Come on, I have a surprise for you." I said, "Okay." So we went over and he took me down to where they had the canoe rentals. And he had rented a canoe and was going to take me on my cruise, because I always said I really want to go on a cruise. So he put me in the canoe and he starts singing "O Sole Mio" to me while he's rowing the canoe in the wrong direction. All the other canoes were going the opposite way, which was the correct way, and Papa, a New York City boy who knew nothing about canoeing, was rowing in the opposite direction and didn't know how to row. We kept hitting the embankment because he didn't know to switch the paddles from one side to the other to keep the canoe balanced. So that was a funny memory.
Do you remember any fads from your youth?
Any fads from my youth? Well, a good fad was the hula hoop. Everybody had the hula hoop, and they all wanted to see how long you could hula hoop. I did pretty well at that. Fads were clothing fads. Okay, Madras plaid was in for the real collegiate style people in school, and then leather and high roll collars were for what they call the greasers, or the really tough people, the real tough guys in school. Fads. I'm trying to think. Silly putty was a big one. We used to get silly putty and used to get the papers, take the silly putty and put it on the comic strips, and the comic strip would come off on the silly putty, and you'd be able to stretch it all out, and so that was a fun thing. But fads, there were so many fads growing up at that time. Skateboards didn't come out till later, but we used to build go-karts. My brother used to build go-karts, and we used to ride up and down the streets on these go-karts. So that was a fad. But music was a big thing. The Beatles had come out when I was a young teenager, so that was a big fad. We went all over the state getting their records, because you could only get records, the Beatles, in certain places. So my mother would drive us all the way down to South Jersey to this record shop to get a 45 record of one of the Beatles that we couldn't get anywhere else. So that was a big fad. There was a lot of things going on in the 60s that were quote-unquote fads, but it was a good time.
Morris Whitus. I'm 65 years old, and you are my adopted granddaughter. They worked a lot. My dad was a very hard worker, and my mom was a hard worker, but she quit working about halfway through her life and stayed at home and took care of the house. Never really knew my grandparents that much. My mom's grandparents on my mom's side I never met, and the grandparents on my dad's side. My grandfather was ill most of the time, and my grandmother was very loving. I was 14 years old. I worked at a veterinarian's hospital. Went in at 5:30 in the morning, cleaned out dog cages, cleaned the building, and came back in the afternoon and did the same thing. How to handle problems. You have to marry your best friend. You have to really get to know the person before you marry them, and make sure that you're compatible, and make sure that you base it on being a best friend, and that's all you base it on. Well, you have to be patient. you have to understand the stages of their life and not take anything personal during those stages. And you have to live a good example for them. I was graduating from the Department of Public Safety Academy. And that was because that was a goal of mine as a highway patrol trooper. Never give up, never quit. There's always a chance. As long as you are moving forward, you've got a chance. My wife. I probably studied harder in college, probably studied harder in high school. And because I really didn't take it serious, I thought that college was supposed to be fun, and I really didn't think it was that important. So I probably studied harder in high school and college. That I was a good example, that I taught them life lessons, and that I was always approachable and never judgmental. Always look on the positive side of things. Never look on the negative side. And when you look on the positive side, you'll always come out ahead.